A Postman Pat storybook collection, read aloud for kids. If you enjoy my videos, please consider subscribing, and why not share my videos with friends or family members. Postman Pat's foggy day. There was thick fog in Greendale. Postman Pat had to go slow along the winding lanes. "This is nasty," said Pat. Jess fluffed up his fur. He didn't like the fog either. It made a cold and clingy wetness in the air. Pat was late when he reached the village post office. Mrs. Goggins was busy dusting the shelves. "Good morning, Mrs. Goggins," called Pat. "Sorry I'm late. It's this blessed fog." "No need to hurry," said Mrs. Goggins. "There's no sign of the letters yet. The fog's made you late. It will make the letters late too. Come in and sit down and have a cup of tea." Pat went into Mrs. Goggins' sitting room at the back of the shop. There were big armchairs and a blazing fire. Pat warmed his hands and sat back amongst the cushions. Jess curled up near the fire and purred. "I'll just brew up," said Mrs. Goggins. "Thank you," said Pat. "This is lovely." Pat was just getting warm and comfortable, and Mrs. Goggins was just bringing the tea and biscuits when ping went the shop's doorbell. "It's a bit early for a customer," said Mrs. Goggins. "That's a good cup of tea," said Pat. But Mrs. Goggins came in with the mailbag saying, "It's here." Pat was surprised. "What, already? I've just picked up my favourite biscuit too." "No time for that now. I'd better be on my way. Come on, Jess." He went into the shop and helped Mrs. Goggins to sort the letters. Then out into the fog again, and Pat was on his way. He knew the Greendale roads well enough, but they looked all different in the fog. He went the wrong way somewhere. He stopped to have a look at the signpost, but it wasn't a signpost, only a crossing sign. Now what? Pat didn't know which way to go. He walked along the lane, trying to see where he was. Then he saw someone standing in the field. He said, "Why is he so still? It must be Ted Glenn, out after the rabbits. He'll know the way. I'll pop over with his letters and ask him." Pat walked across the field very quietly, so as not to frighten the rabbits away. He touched Ted on the shoulder. Ted didn't move. He put the letters in Ted's pocket. Still Ted did not move. He gave Ted a nudge. Ted swung around suddenly. Oh, it wasn't Ted at all. It was a scarecrow. Pat did feel silly. He said, "Sorry, Scarecrow, the letters aren't for you, and I don't suppose you can tell me the way in this fog. Goodbye." Pat walked back to the road. He was wondering what to do when he saw lights coming through the fog. It was Alf Thompson on his tractor. Luckily, he wasn't lost. He soon showed Pat which way to go. Pat was on his way again. His next stop was at the church. The Reverend Timms met him at the door. He said, "Hello, Pat. Isn't this fog ghastly? I don't know how you found the way. It's choir practice too. I expect Miss Hubbard will come. Nothing stops her. 3 letters today. Thanks, Pat. Now go cheerfully and trust in the Lord. Goodbye. Cheerio, Reverend." When Pat looked at his van, Jess had gone. He looked everywhere. Under the van, behind the van, over the wall. There was no sign of Jess. Where could that cat be? He called, "Jess! Jess!" There was no answer. Perhaps Jess has gone looking for the rabbits. Pat set out to seek him. He called and he called and he called. "Jess! Jess! Where are you?" He went over a stile, across the field, through a gate, through a small wood, into another field, calling all the time. "Where are you, Jess? Jess! Jess! Come on, Jess! Here, Puss! Silly Puss! This is no time for hide and seek." He sat down on a tussock to have a rest. He put his hand on something furry. It moved. Oh! What a fright it gave him! It was Jess! "Jess, you silly cat! Where have you been?" Jess was cold and wet. Pat could not be cross with him. He gave him a cuddle, then tucked him under his arm, saying, "Come on, Jess, we'd better be on our way. Now, let's see, which way is it?" Pat was lost again, and the fog was thicker than ever. "Now you've done it, Jess. We're really lost this time." Pat began to wander about in the fog. He couldn't find the road, let alone his van. He walked into mud, up to his ankles. Then he stumbled through a stream and a patch of nettles. Branches of a tree scratched his face and knocked his hat off. The fog swirled around him. He was lost, and more surely lost with every step. Not so very far away, Miss Hubbard was cycling along the road. When she saw Pat's van, she stopped and had a look inside. "No Pat, no Jess," she said. "I wonder if they're at the church." There was only the Reverend Timms in the church, sorting out the hymn books. "Hello, Vicar," said Miss Hubbard. "Have you seen Pat? His van's outside, and there's no sign of him or his cat. Whatever can have happened to them?" "Dear me," said the Reverend Timms. "Pat called some time ago. They must have got lost in the fog." "I know what we must do," said Miss Hubbard. "We must ring the church bells to guide them back to the church." And that is what they did. They pulled the ropes, and the bells clanged and clamoured in the church tower. Out in the misty fields, Pat stopped to listen. "Bells," he said. "I thought it was choir practice. I wonder what they're ringing for. They're as good as a foghorn. We'll soon find our way now." Pat followed the sound. The way went through a bramble patch and some very prickly gorse. But it wasn't long before he found the road, then his van, then the church. The church door opened, and in came Pat, blinking in the light. "There's Pat!" cried Miss Hubbard, and they stopped ringing. "Hello," said Pat. "It's a good thing you rang those bells. We were properly lost. Never mind, we're all right now." "The good Lord will be our guide," said the Reverend Timms. "Come and have some tea. There's plenty in the pot." "Thanks, I need it," said Pat. There was some milk for Jess. They talked of other foggy days that they had known, and enjoyed their tea. Then Miss Hubbard said, "Look at the windows." The coloured glass was all shining quite brightly. "It's much brighter outside." They went to the door. A breeze was blowing the fog away, and the sun was beginning to shine. They could see the fields and hills again. "That's much better," said Pat. "Now I can get on with my letters. Come on, Jess. Cheerio. Thanks for the tea." Pat waved goodbye and went on his way. It was lovely, driving along in the sunshine without getting lost. They passed the scarecrow, standing patiently in its field. "Look, Jess," said Pat. "That scarecrow's still waiting for a letter." Jess was hoping that there would be a rabbit pie for tea. The end. Thanks so much for watching, and I hope to see you again here at the ABC Storytime.